That's right, Adam Sykes of the Blockbusters show is back, and today we're going to be looking at what is often considered the worst superhero movie ever made. Yeah, it won Razzies, it's all over the IMDb top 100 worst movies list. It's Catwoman with Halle Berry.
You died, but you were reborn. By accepting all of who you are, you can be free.
She's very self-confident, almost angry.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Allergies?
Amateurs.
Steve says she jumps around like a cat. What should we call her?
Catwoman.
Looking back on it now, dying was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Now, this came out just at the right time for superhero movies when both them and video game movies were on a steady level of suck. And there were some good ones in between. There were a few good ones to come out, but overall there were some pretty bad ones. I mean, during this time we were saddled with really shitty video game movies from Uwe Boll, and terrible comic book movies like this, and Elektra, and The Spirit, and a bunch of other terrible comic book movies. But for some reason, this seems to be the one that everyone remembers being bad. Like, this one's like notoriously shitty. And being someone whose only recollection about this movie was seeing it in the Blockbuster video store we used to work at, and I would see it and I'd be like, you know, someday we should watch that. And we never got around to it because the store got shut down. Now, all these years later, we finally get to talk about it. A shy woman endowed with the speed, reflexes, and senses of a cat walks a thin line between criminal and hero, even as a detective doggedly pursues her, fascinated by both of her personas. 3.4 out of 10 on IMDb. That's 2 points less than Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas. That is not a good sign. And it's also ranked number 41 on the top 100 worst movies on IMDb. There you go. So the movie begins with like a history lesson showing like cats all throughout history in images that are clearly photoshopped. And we see the movie was directed by one of those guys who just has like a single name. In this case, it's Petoff. I could be totally wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure this was his only movie. Then we see the city in what's obviously CG in a sweeping shot, and it looks like something out of a PS2 game. We see our main character, Patience, played by Halle Berry. Yeah, this is one of those superhero movies where they didn't go for the actual comic book origin story, but they tried to get a new character and make it about them, which that could work. I mean, it's worked for Miles Morales and, you know, all the different Spider-Verse stories, but the thing is, say what you want, they weren't Halle Berry's Catwoman. Despite being played by Halle Berry, she's really not that interesting of a character. I mean, she works at this high-end, like, fashion-type place where they specialize in, like, beauty creams and stuff like that. And her best friend is played by Mad TV's Alex Borstein, or as most people remember her, Lois from Family Guy.
You're so addicted to that stuff, Sally.
I believe. Healing is magic in a bottle, baby.
I don't even know how you get it. It's not even in production yet.
We have our ways.
He has this asshole billionaire boss who's sleeping around on his wife, who's played by Sharon Stone, and she hates the fact that she's being replaced as the cover model and is being replaced with some hotter, younger girl. Established pretty early on that Halle Berry's character at this point in the movie doesn't really stand up for herself. She's kind of mousy and small and soft-spoken. She doesn't stand up to her asshole boss. She awkwardly bumps into people on her way to work because, oh, quirky, relatable. She doesn't stand up for herself when she's up against her asshole neighbors who are partying a lot, really loud at night. She can't, like, tell them to stop without just getting cussed out, and then they slam the door in her face. The next day, she sees a cat on her windowsill of her apartment, and she tries to save it, but she almost slips and she's about to fall, but then there's this guy, this cop, he sees her on the sidewalk, and he runs into her building, and then he just saves her just as she's about to fall. I don't know how fast he was running, like this guy was apparently a fucking descendant of the Flash, but he just goes from the bottom of the building to like right there in a matter of like jump cuts shots. I'm just gonna get this out of the way. There's lots of weird editing all throughout this movie. Like, they don't have shots last for like 5 seconds. They just have shots quick cut, quick cut, quick cut, quick cut, and it's really, it's like seizure inducing. Anyway, Ben saves her, and obviously they seem to like each other. So there's a part where he shows up at her office, and she's egged on to ask him out by Alex Borstein and some flamboyant gay guy stereotype.
Hey, man sandwich, 12 o'clock.
Because didn't it just work so well with Tammy and the T-Rex? The part where she sees Ben as he's talking to some kids at school and they start playing basketball. Because as we all know, cats, you know, they're known for their ability to play basketball. Anyway, she ends up at a factory for their new facial cream, and she sees that there's some bad results that like really mess up people's faces. So she tries to get away and make a break for it, but she ends up in a giant sewer pipe type place, and they end up flushing her out, and apparently that killed her. So Halle's dead body washes up on the beach, and there's a bunch of CGI cats, and we see the cat that she saved earlier in the movie, and it just breathes on her face, and that gives her cat abilities. Yeah, a cat breathes on her, and now all of a sudden she's just Catwoman. She has cat abilities, and she can do whatever a Catwoman can. You can tell this because when she works her way back home, she's sleeping on one of her shelves, and then she falls off when she wakes up and lands on her feet. Because you get it? That's what a cat does. And there's tons of that kind of shit all throughout this movie. Tons of scenes where she's just doing things that a cat would do, and it feels like some asshole in the movie theater is nudging you in the side going, get it? You get it? Like, there's a part where she's just chowing down on just cans of tuna in her apartment. She hisses at some dogs on the street. There's a part where her and Ben go on a date at a sushi place and she's scarfing down sushi because, again, cats love fish. Parts where she's just like moving around her apartment by like jumping from one platform to another platform, like when cats randomly do fucking parkour. The part where she's finally donning the Catwoman getup, she goes to a club and she orders just straightforward milk instead of an actual alcoholic drink. Because you get it? Cats love milk. The next day she goes to work and she now has these cat-like abilities, and the first thing she does is she mouths off to her boss, which results in her getting fired. And then that's when Alex Borstein ends up passing out on the street as they walk her home, and they have to put her in a hospital. And it's later revealed that she's taking the face cream that's gonna F up a lot of people's faces. She sees the cat that she rescued the other day that also breathed on her face, and she takes it to its owner because she finds the address on its collar, and it's some crazy cat lady who apparently knows like all the Catwoman throughout history. One time, if you look carefully, there's a picture of Michelle Pfeiffer, and I'm just like, fuck you, movie. And she also gives her the costume, but that happens a little bit later. Before that, there's a scene where Halle finally mouths off to her asshole neighbors by using their beer to fuck up their speakers, and then she takes the dude's motorcycle. And she also cuts her hair shorter, puts on some red lipstick and some leather, and she takes off. And I just gotta point this out. This whole scene of her like wearing this leather outfit, and then she eventually puts on like a face mask when she goes into this jewelry store that she was going to rob. That outfit looks way better as a Catwoman outfit than what she ends up wearing in the rest of the movie.
You boys thought you could come in here and steal all these beautiful things? What a perfect idea.
Because with that outfit, it actually looked like something Catwoman would wear. But here, the outfit that is supposed to be her official Catwoman outfit looks like S&M Mickey Mouse gear. Versus the other one, which looked way better. It looked way hotter. It looked like something the character from the comics would actually fucking wear. Anyway, after more seizure-inducing edits with her speeding around on the motorcycle, she goes to this jewelry store that she was at earlier in the movie, and she plans to steal some jewelry, but there's already a robbery in progress, and she ends up taking out the bad guys by jumping around on the walls with some pretty bad CGI. After some mediocre fight choreography, she ends up beating up all the guys. She rides on one of them like a skateboard for some reason.
Meow.
She's just not doing it right.
Meow.
Next day, she realizes she stole the jewelry, so she tries to give it back, and she puts a sorry note in some cupcakes. And that sorry note is gonna come in handy later. Finally embraces that she's Catwoman. She puts on the Mickey Mouse S&M gear outfit, and she goes after some of the guys that tried to kill her that night. Much later on in the movie, she ends up getting brought in by Sharon Stone, and she tells her that the face cream is actually the fault of her asshole cheating husband, who's out at some play with a prostitute. Halle shows up dressed up as Catwoman. She slaps him around a little bit, threatens him, intimidates him, and then just kind of leaves. Not before batting at one of the people on stage who's dressed up like a fish, because again, cats love fish. But, oh, once she gets backstage, Ben shows up and they have a little bit of a squabble, And then later that night, they go on a date, and he somehow doesn't piece together that it's obviously her. If a guy can't recognize the girl he's going out with when she's in a bad superhero costume and not in a bad superhero costume, he's probably the same kind of guy who won't recognize the fact that she got her hair cut. After their date, they go back to her place to have sex. Don't get too excited, it's a PG-13, so there's no nudity. And after she falls asleep, he ends up finding out that she's Catwoman, and he takes it down to the police station. And when she wakes up, she gets a call from Sharon Stone, and she goes over to her place, and it turns out that Sharon Stone killed her husband, and she reveals that she was the one behind the face cream all along, and she tries to frame Halle for what she did by planting a gun on her, and Halle makes a break for it as the police are chasing after her. She switches into a different outfit, an outfit that makes her look like the bride from Kill Bill for some reason. And now it seems that she's public enemy #1 as she tries to get away, but she ends up getting apprehended. Her and Ben have an interrogation, and she gives a heartfelt apology, and she tries to tell him that Sharon Stone is behind everything. She ends up getting locked up in prison, but then the cat that she rescued that gave her the powers slips through the window, and that inspires her to try and slip through the bars. Again, because that's a thing cats can do, and ends up going to Sharon Stone. Sharon Stone reveals that, yes, she actually is the one responsible. Halle shows up in her Catwoman outfit. They have a fight that goes on for a really, really fucking long time. Sharon Stone then reveals the power of the cream, and that the cream, if you stop using it, then it makes your bones become frail and weak, and if you keep using it, then it turns your skin into solid marble. Anyway, the fight scene ends up with Sharon Stone dangling outside of a window after Halle gives one of the most laughably bad one-liners I've ever heard in a movie.
Game over. Guess what? It's overtime.
And then Sharon Stone falls in what is, again, obviously CG, and I love it because as she spins down like a fucking human ninja star, it looks like the worst ragdoll physics you've seen in a video game. So the movie ends with them finding a cure for the cream, which means that Lois from Family Guy is going to be okay. Benjamin Bratt doesn't end up getting with Halle, and Halle walks off into the moonlight, and the movie ends with one thing I've left out throughout this entire review. All throughout this movie, the soundtrack is like really inappropriate early 2000s R&B. Like every song on the soundtrack begins with like one of those like Rihanna, Beyonce style whoa, whoa, whoa kind of things, and it's every time it happens it's fucking jarring. Yeah, no surprise here, this movie's bad, but I do kind of take some solace in the fact that Halle Berry seems to know that it was bad. I mean, the fact that she showed up to the Razzies to accept her award, I give her props for that. That's something most Hollywood assholes probably wouldn't do. They probably wouldn't admit to being in shitty movies. But the fact that she actually showed up and accepted the award, that's a certain level of professionalism right there. As it stands, the effects are laughably bad. It's really dated with all the times they try to do the one-liners. All the really stupid attempts at humor and the constant, like, those are things cats do, is really fucking obnoxious. The characters themselves aren't that interesting, from the main characters to the villains, and the annoying comic relief. Personally, it would have been really funny if the cat that breathed on her and gave her cat abilities was actually the guy in the Cool Cat suit from Cool Cat Saves the Kids. As it stands, unless you're going to watch this movie to make fun of it, I really don't recommend watching Catwoman. If you're a superhero movie buff, even if you're trying to find like just a cool action movie with a female lead, don't watch this. Unless you plan to make fun of it, because you probably could get some good laughs out of how shitty some of the stuff in it is. But anyway, I feel like we're starting with one of the better bad movies, because next time we're looking at another cat-related movie, and it's also based on a popular brand. However, this time, instead of a comic book, it's a comic strip. Yes, that's right. Next time we're going to be looking at the movie based on the cat that always goes, "Mondays, huh?" That's going to suck. But anyway, until then, guys, I'm Adam Sykes of The Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.
Cat got your tongue.